Most people step over them without a glance. Dry, brown, scattered across parks and forests, acorns register as nothing more than seasonal debris. But for most of human history, this ignored nut was the thin line between survival and death. In medieval Europe, especially during times of famine, acorns were not optional food. They were fallback calories when grain failed, livestock died, and society began to unravel. During the Great Famine of 1315 to 1322, endless rain rotted crops in the fields, and a cattle plague wiped out more than half of Europe's herds. Millions faced a brutal reality: learn to eat what the forest provides or starve. What made this struggle even more dangerous is that acorns are toxic if eaten raw. Yet generation after generation figured out how to turn poison into food. That knowledge was guarded, refined, and passed down because lives depended on it. Today, we're going to break down exactly how medieval peasants did it, why it worked, and what it teaches us about real survival. If this kind of deep, practical history matters to you, take a second to like the video, share it with someone who loves forgotten skills, drop a comment about whether you've ever foraged wild food, and subscribe to Warfront Survival so you don't miss future episodes. Now let's get straight into the techniques that kept entire villages alive. When the forest replaced the marketplace, survival depended on knowledge, not luck. Medieval peasants didn't see woods as wilderness. They saw a seasonal food system. Oaks were calorie vaults, but only if you knew which ones to harvest. White oak acorns contained far fewer tannins and were prized whenever available. Red oak acorns were far more bitter and dangerous, but still usable with enough processing. Identifying the right trees by leaf shape, bark, and acorn size was a life skill taught from childhood. Autumn meant urgency. Acorns drop in massive quantities, but wildlife competes aggressively. Families and entire villages worked together, gathering for days before frost or animals claimed the harvest. Not every acorn was worth keeping, and medieval rules were unforgiving. Immature acorns with caps still attached were discarded. Any nut with cracks risked mould that could ruin stored supplies. Small round holes meant weevil larvae had already eaten the inside. After gathering, the harvest went through the float test. Good acorns sank, bad ones floated. This simple step saved hours of wasted labour and prevented spoilage. The survivors were dried near hearth fires for days or weeks, making shells brittle and easier to crack. Processing acorns was slow, communal labour that filled long evenings. Shelling was done with stones, carefully cracked one nut at a time. Inside waited another obstacle, the thin inner skin packed with tannins. Removing it stained hands dark brown and left fingers aching. Children, adults and elders all worked together because no single person could manage the volume alone. Once cleaned, the acorns were crushed into small pieces. This wasn't for convenience. Smaller pieces leached faster, and time mattered when hunger was constant. Leeching was the line between food and poison. Tannins are water-soluble compounds that block protein absorption and can damage organs. Medieval peasants understood something critical. Water removes tannins, but the method determines the final food. Cold water leaching took days but preserved oils and starches, producing flour that thickened when cooked. Hot water leaching worked in hours, not days, but reduced nutrition. In famine conditions, speed won. One rule was absolute: never mix hot and cold methods. Switching temperatures locks tannins into the nut permanently and ruins the batch. The acorns were boiled repeatedly, each time dumping water that turned dark like ink. With each boil, the colour lightened, showing progress. Then came a trick born from observation and, well, a bit of desperation. Wood ash. Ash from hardwood fires is alkaline, and when added to boiling acorns, it chemically neutralizes tannins. What normally took 5 or 6 water changes could be done in 3. This wasn't superstition. It was practical chemistry, learned through survival, and guarded because it saved time, fuel, and honestly, lives. Taste was the final test. If bitterness remained, leeching continued. When the flavour turned mild and nutty, the danger was gone. With tannins removed, acorns became food, but still bland and soft. Roasting transformed them. Pieces were placed directly into hot ashes, turned carefully and watched closely. The smell shifted from boiled starch to rich, nutty warmth. In minutes, they browned into something recognizable as real food. Some were eaten whole, others were ground into flour on stone, an exhausting task that could take days to produce enough for bread. Acorn bread was dense, dark and heavy, but it delivered fat, carbohydrates and energy when nothing else remained. By modern standards, the labour-to-calorie ratio is terrible. 5 hours of work might feed one person for a day, but in a famine, that calculation changes completely. 5 hours of work for survival is not failure, it's victory. Archaeology proves this wasn't rare desperation. Dedicated acorn processing vessels appear in sites over 7,000 years old. Iron Age granaries filled with stored acorns show long-term planning, not panic. Acorns even crossed class lines. By the late medieval and Renaissance periods, medical texts praised them for supposed health benefits. Wealthy kitchens transformed peasant survival food into elaborate pies loaded with butter, cream, cheese, sugar and spices. The same nut that saved peasants from starvation appeared on noble tables, dressed in luxury. Acorns were never chosen because they were easy. They mattered because knowledge made them possible. That knowledge kept families alive through collapse, famine and loss. It's a reminder that real survival is not heroic or glamorous. It's patient, exhausting, and rooted in understanding the land. If you want more forgotten survival skills, real history, and techniques tested by centuries of hardship, subscribe to Warfront Survival and share this video with someone who values hard-earned knowledge. These skills aren't myths, they're history, and history still has lessons worth learning.